I'd like to call this meeting of the Carson City Historic Resources Commission for Thursday, June 8th, 2017 at the Sierra Room at the Community Center to order. Could we have a roll call?
Chairperson Drews.
Here.
Vice Chair Darney. Commissioner Block.
Here.
Commissioner Hayes.
Here.
Commissioner Smith.
Here.
Commissioner Schmitter. Commissioner Spilda.
Here.
A quorum's present.
Thank you, Tamara. B, public comments. Members of the public who wish to address the commission may approach the podium at this time to speak on matters relevant to or within the authority of the Historic Resources Commission, including any matter that is not specifically included on the agenda as an action item. No action may be taken on a matter raised under this public comment portion of the agenda. Is there any public comment? Hearing none, we'll move to C for possible action, approval of minutes from the March 9th, 2017 meeting. I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Motion and second. Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. D, modification of agenda. Agenda management notice. Items on the agenda may be taken out of order. The public body may combine two or more agenda items for consideration, and the public body may remove an item from the agenda or delay discussion relating to an item on the agenda at any time. Hope, is there any
No changes.
commission members? Hearing none, we'll go to E, disclosures. Any member of the commission that may explain any contact with the public regarding an item on the agenda or business of the commission. Is there any disclosure? Are there any disclosures?
On F1, I talked to Bobby Benson coming in the door here, but nothing of great substance was communicated, so other than she'd make her reservation for dinner. I assured her, that's right, so don't worry.
You're on the hook then.
No.
Any other disclosures? Hearing none, we'll move to public hearing matters. F1 for possible action, HRC-17-008, to consider a request from Robert C. McFadden. Never mind. That was, don't read the minutes. Let's start over. F1 for possible action, HRC-17-031, to consider a request from property owner RBT 0641 Irrevocable Trust, care of Christian Benson for historical tax deferment status on property zoned residential office, RO, located at 402 South Division Street, APN 003-128-02. Hope.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The subject property already has a tax deferment. The request for deferment is a derivative of a change of ownership from a personal ownership to ownership by a trust. The HRC is reviewing 4 findings when you consider this application. 1, does the property have significance, or is it listed in the Carson City Historic Survey, which it is, and I gave you a copy of the survey information. Is the property in good repair, and the staff has been out to the site and found it to be in good repair? Are alterations on the property compatible with the historic character? Staff is not aware of any recent alterations, but in observing the property, staff found this finding could be met. And is the property in compliance with the Historic Resource Commission guidelines? Staff did find that in the affirmative as well. I have on the screen a picture of the house. No, I don't. Tamar, can I have PowerPoint?
Oh, I'm sorry.
So staff is recommending approval based on the ability to make those 4 findings. Bobby Benson, the property owner, is here with her son, and she's happy to speak to the commission as well, and I'll answer questions. Just for everyone's clarity, this item, after review by the HRC, does go to the Board of Supervisors, and the Board of Supervisors has the ability to actually grant the deferment.
Thanks, Hope. You want to, why don't you put the picture up first, and then we'll,
Can we make a motion?
well, yeah, is there any discussion on this? Commission members?
Well, we're waiting for a photo. Oh, here it comes. This is right next door to my house, so and It's a lovely house and deserving of its status, and I see nothing wrong with the application.
I would second that. It's a beautiful house and well-kept.
Thank you. Is there any other commission member questions, comments? Is there any public comment? Hearing none, I will entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion. I'm sorry. Yeah, it's red. I have to get Hope's, what I'm supposed to say here. I've got it. Just had the wrong one.
You were all excited about
Well, I was, but I move to approve HRC 17-031, a request from RBT 0641 Irrevocable Trust 122216 for historical tax deferment on property zoned residential office located at 402 South Division Street, APN 003-128-02. The subject approval is based on the findings that the property is in general conformance with the Secretary of the Interior Standards and Guidelines for Rehabilitation, Carson City Historic District Guidelines, and with Historic Resources Commission policies.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second. Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
There you go, and you're not late for dinner yet, so.
Yeah. Next item, F2, for possible action, HRC-17-062, to consider a request from applicants David and Don Morris, owner Peter M. Dickinson, to replace roof with patch metal, add dry stack rock planters 3 to 4 feet high, replace garage doors, add stacked rock on walls of garage on property zoned residential office, RO, located at 211 and 213 South Nevada Street, APN 003-114-07 and 003-114-08. Hope.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Hope Sullivan, Planning Manager. The subject property is comprised of 2 lots. They're small. One of them is 1,376 square feet. The other one is 2,365 square feet. The subject property is surrounded by a parking lot. One of the properties is improved with a garage, and the other is improved with a building that was most recently used as an office. Neither building has an association with a pattern of local history or with a person in history. The building design is not architecturally significant, and the buildings are not particularly good examples of the vernacular design. The applicant, as the chair outlined, is seeking to install a new roof, specifically a corrugated patch metal roof similar to Red's 395. And here's a photograph I took of Red's 395, which shows the corrugated metal roof. They're also seeking to replace garage doors, install dry stack planters, and place rock on the garage. With respect to the roofing, in the guidelines, it does note that corrugated metal is used on outbuildings in the district. Given the size of these buildings, they're tiny. Staff feels like you can equate them to an outbuilding as opposed to a primary building, and finds that given the shape of the roof will not change, that the roofing material would be acceptable. In terms of the garage door, the applicant is just looking for a traditional garage door to change out the garage doors. Staff does not find that the doors themselves are contributing features in the district. There will be no change in the openings of the building, and that would be consistent with the guidelines. In terms of the planters, the applicant has provided a site plan that shows the location of the planters on the site. And there, it's proposing planter heights of 3 to 4 feet. Staff finds that stone can be a very powerful image. So we do have guidelines on masonry elements, and there is recognition that stone features are found throughout the district. However, given that these are such small lots and they're such small buildings, staff's thinking that dry stack planter 3 to 4 feet tall is really going to become the defining feature of that property, and would recommend a limit to that height of 2 feet. The applicant is also proposing to place stone on the garage. I do not have a drawing of his plans, but the applicant is present. And I will note that stone is found on some buildings in the district, and the garage is not a contributing building. So given that's not a contributing building and stone is on some buildings in the district, staff would find that that would be acceptable. The applicants, the Moores, are present. They are, as I understand it, in escrow to purchase this property and wanted to confirm what they would be able to do upon closing on the property prior to closing. I'm happy to answer questions, but they'll be able to probably provide more detail. Thank you.
Thank you, Hope. Are there any commission member questions of Hope? Would one or both of you like to come up and answer? Are there any questions of the applicant?
I have a few.
Okay. You need to state your name for the record.
David Moores.
First, Hope said it didn't have, the architectural experience. This is one of my favorite little buildings in town. I love that house. I think it's great. I know it sounds stupid, but I love the shape of that. I've always liked that house. I have one question about the walls. You want to use a dry stack on that site plan that you showed, and then you want to put stone on the garage itself. Are they going to be compatible stones, same stone?
Same type, slide mountain granite.
Slide mountain granite?
Yep.
Super. That answers my questions.
Okay. Same stuff that the pictures, basically the same material, identical.
Is the garage roof going to be the metal as well?
You know, the garage doors are, what you're looking at there is one dilapidated garage door on the left and the other was paneled in. It doesn't have it's not even the garage doors. They just panel it over. It's a garage opening and it's garage on the other side of it, but it's not a usable door. It's solid. We're just wanting to put some usable garage doors up that are compatible to what, so we can have automatic garage doors.
Is the roof going to be the same metal as the house, or is it
I
fine?
really haven't determined that what's feasible there because I haven't ripped off the old one. There's 2 or 3 roofs on this old. There's about 3 roofs on the garage, and there's at least 2 on the house. And I might have to resheet and, definitely have to waterproof it. I mean, those are my 2 main concerns, is getting the garages so I can lock them and, leave my tools in it and get some roofs on to waterproof them.
Mr. Chair, can I follow up on that question? My understanding was the intent for the corrugated metal roof with the patchwork, like the red 395 roof, was for the house as well as the garage. Mm-hmm. Is that the case?
Yes.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions?
So where does the rock come in on the garage? We're not talking the roof then, we're talking
Just the side, I think.
siding or?
I was going to roll some bigger stuff up to it and then dry stack some planters. It's it's not a standard wall at all. It'll meander a little bit. It'll roll. The top and bottom will be whatever height I can get away with. But
Mr.
the
Chair.
garage is actually ready. You could go all the way up with masonry on it, and because it's just block.
Mr. Chair, just to clarify, so I think the commissioner's question was regarding putting rock on the facade of the garage as opposed to the planters. Mm-hmm. Is that correct? And again, clarification on where on the facade you plan to put the rock?
I'd go all the way up with it. I mean, if I attempt to do that, it's pretty expensive, but it's a pretty good solid old building, really. There's a lot of cracks in it on the left side because the big cottonwoods that are there are kind of undermining the foundation a little bit right now. But I don't think you'd need a lot of mortar for it to be stable.
Is it just the facade of the garage, or are you going to do all 4 sides of the garage at the stone?
No, it would be the whole thing.
Oh.
I'd like to add a couple things to that. I have no issues with the rock as a veneer on the side. I'd like to see something showing us the extent of that, elevations of the building or something, because there's a lot of details that need to be addressed, as how you're going to handle the header across the top of the door. It's not just a glue rock on it kind of thing.
No,
It's in the
you have
historic test. We'd like to see a little
You'd have a 4-inch
something.
piece of angle iron to hold the header, hold the rock above the header, and you just bolt that into what's there.
I'm more interested in the aesthetic look of, is it going to have a header across that's exposed? Is it just going to be rock that just goes across?
You won't see the header, it'll be rock.
That kind of thing. Secondly, also, how is it married to rock coming from the ground? You said you're going to roll some larger ones, which is common kind of thing. But the only issue I really have here, and this maybe comes back to planning, is I don't really have any details to follow on the extent of the stop and start of the materials. It's vague enough to be too loose for me.
Well,
Not shooting any of your ideas down, but I think we need to see a little more
The
detail
only
of.
vagueness for my is we're trying to make it livable again.
Sure.
As a residence. And financially, I don't know how far I can go. I mean, eventually I can do it, but I don't know how fast I can get it all done. And that's, if you're asking for a time frame,
No, I'm not asking for a time frame. I'm just asking for something to give us some kind of a rendition or a drawing or something that shows us the extent of the work. It doesn't tell me here that it goes full height. It doesn't tell me how the doors are going to be trimmed or how does the rock in the yard associate with the rock on the building. There's no dimensions. It doesn't show me on the plan where the extent of the work is, and that usually is a normal requirement for pretty much anything we do here. Fences included, whereas the line, how long the fence is, that kind of thing. So I'd like to have a little more detail, and that can probably be done administratively, I would think, if necessary, or we'd have to make them come back to submit something more. What do
I
you
was
guys
just going to
feel?
mention that the intent of this meeting is really for the Moores to understand what will be feasible in terms of improving the aesthetic. The addition of the rock, if you even look at the application, I don't know if you guys could tell this, it was a different pen color even, because it was like this last minute, oh yeah, we're going to put rock on the garage. And I think that's why we didn't have the paperwork on that. But your comment's fair, and I think if this is something the board's receptive to, we can just say the board's receptive, but is withholding
Yeah.
approval until construction plan.
Absolutely. I don't have any issues with the materials you're proposing. The corrugated roof, I'm not sure I'm keen on the patchwork type roof on a residential property this tight into the district. It's nice on reds, but kind of playful there, but I don't know if it's a fit in this
well,
neighborhood. Corrugated's not a problem.
I'm not even that sure that metal's feasible until I get it all ripped off. It's
Right.
it's really an old roof, and like I said, there's 3 roofs on the garage and there's 2 roofs on the.
My preference would be
House.
just to make it corrugated, the rusty stuff or something, but not attempt to do the patchwork kind of thing. I think it's a little too much play for such a small, the scale I think would be incorrect. Just an opinion.
The more I look at it, I agree with Rob. I don't think any of us are going to object. I'm speaking for myself. I shouldn't have said that. But I don't have a problem with what you're proposing so that you can get the closing done. But I'd like to pick up on Rob a little bit. You're going to use natural stone, real stone, so the minimum you're going to be able to go is like 6 inches. And as I start to look at the detail in the garage, it looks like the overhang on the garage is less than a foot. On the eaves, on the front fascia, it looks like it might even be smaller than that. So I agree with Rob. There's going to have to be a little time spent on detail, because if you use that thick of stone, you're going to cover all of the CMU with it. You're going to have a roof problem there. So I don't have a problem. I love what you're trying to do. I think from my standpoint, go ahead and close it. We like your materials, but you're going to have to bring us back something. And I'm also on board with Rob that he could give it to our chairman, because he's really a bright guy and he can work with you to work out those details.
Yeah. Are there any other questions or comments? I think what I'm hearing and the board is saying is we're on board with your materials. And if you need to piecemeal it, if you want to start on the house first and start on the roof, just fire off an application to Hope with whatever materials or what you want. And with the direction I'm getting from the board and the fact that we do administrative approvals for standard materials all the time, we can process that right away for you. So I'm not seeing any roadblocks, but as we do it, we do need, as you bring these back to.
When we come in with a firmer plan, and when I
Yeah.
see what I've got, I know what I've got on that garage. I mean, it's actually a really good application to put stone on. And I've done a lot of them for a lot of years. So I think it'll enhance the property a lot just by
Yeah, so just as you go through it, just get with community development, put an or fill out an application, and we can look it over. And if, go ahead.
I'm doing a repair on a mid-century thing like this, and they used 1x8 sheeting underneath there, so you will have to sheet it, and it's got the cut cedar shingles and all that stuff, so you're probably going to have to go down and sheet it. But the other question is, how high are you going to allow him to do the wall? Because he was saying 3 to 4 feet in the application. Staff was recommending 2 feet. What?
Yeah, that's
landscaping,
the
so-
landscaping, but I mean, it sounds to me like it's conceptual at this point.
Right, and I like the metal roof, and I like the slide mountain granite on the garage and the walls and everything else. But as far as when he comes back with this conceptual idea that it is now, they're also talking about walls. Do we need to approve the height of the walls from which they were?
They're more planters than walls, and they'll rock and roll a little bit. I mean,
Yeah, I think I think what staff recommended makes sense, and if it's 2.5 feet and it scales right, we can, if the board doesn't object, I can approve that administratively when it comes in too, as long as we know what those parameters are, so. Any other questions or comments? Hope is,
I was just going to suggest, based on what I'm hearing, that we add a first condition of approval that says something to the effect of detailed plans for all improvements are subject to review and approval by the chair prior to issuance of any building permits. And that way, all the other conditions can stay intact and you'd be in a position to approve it. But we would then have the caveat that this wasn't the level of detail the commission needed, and the construction level drawings need to go to the chair.
okay? Any other commission member questions, comments? Is there any public comment? Hearing none, I will entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve, let me get my right one here. Which one is this, HR F2? Don't have, here it is. Item HRC-17-062, application from David and Don Moores to install corrugated metal roof, dry stack rock planters, placement of rock on the garage and new garage doors on property zoned residential office, RO, located at 211 and 213 South Nevada Street. Upon approval of the staff and outline in the staff reports of the findings and restrictions based on the standards and guidelines for rehabilitation, the Carson City Historic District guidelines, and consistent with the Historic Commission's policies, with the addition conditions of approval being that a more detailed description of the limits of materials for roof and walls and exterior planters be submitted to the chairman for final approval prior to permit approval.
Thank you, Rob. I have a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Motion and a second. Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you, guys, and good luck. Should be fun.
Thanks for coming before you bought the property.
Sounds good.
Yeah, that's a good point. Thanks for
Yeah.
coming before you bought the house.
Yeah, thank you for showing up before you bought the house and decided that we were a big pain and you couldn't do this.
Yeah, better to know, by God.
If you find the other half, let me know. F3, discussion only, HRC-15-070. Discussion regarding the Commission Assistance and Mentoring Program Camp, a 2-day historic preservation training series that was conducted on April 28th and 29th, 2017. Hope.
I don't really have a report. I think most of us were able to attend it and really, really enjoyed it. And I really just wanted to give you an opportunity to identify what your takeaways were so that we could agendize things that you felt needed to be explored more. So this is really just on the agenda to give you a chance to tell me what you want me to agendize going forward.
I'll start. One of the things that I took from this, which was unexpected, was the interaction with all the other people on all the other historic committees in the area. That's something I kind of took for granted. I never really thought about, that there's 35 other people doing the exact same thing we're doing that are within driving distance of us. That might be something where maybe we have down the road further interaction or communications with our neighbors.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea, and I think it's great that the Reno planning staff showed up as well, because it's nice when all the planners are on the same page, too. One of the things that did come out of that was the need for a historic district master or historic master plan. It sounded like it was something we could apply for CLG grant funding for. I'm still not sure that we don't have one. I can't find it on one of my floppies, but I haven't looked that hard. So we may have one that I seem to remember playing with one back in the 90s. So there may be one somewhere, but if not, it sure sounds like SHPO would like us to put one together. Any other commission member comments?
I'd just like to observe some of the key points they had us write down on this little postcard that we gave to them. They're going to send back to us at some point. But I sort of need that back. I need that mental stimulus to remind me of the key points. I did a pretty good job on the postcard, but it's going to help me to get it back. So I don't know when they're planning to send it back, but
Did you put the right address on it?
Yeah.
Did you put the right address on it?
yes, sir.
I liked the exercise they gave us, because they showed us an example of something that could go horribly wrong and how to correct that, and hopefully nothing like that will happen in Carson, but also other materials on windows and how to seal the old windows that I think are great, because the sash cords work, but they leak, but now how to fix them and how to rehabilitate them, and to realize that vinyl windows are lasting 10, 15, maybe 20 years on the outside. So every vinyl window that we've approved in 20 years, the same exercise has to come up, which is kind of disheartening, but at the same token, it was really, really pretty good. And like everybody else that came out of what I say came out of the woodwork, because you get stuck in Carson, this is where we revolve, and you have people coming from Reno and Virginia City and everything else doing the same thing. So I look forward to being able to have some more programs like that.
And I guess what really what I noticed too is that I think Carson City's doing a lot right. There were a lot of things that were brought up and suggestions that we're already doing. So I think we've learned a lot in the 30 years that HORC has been around, and we are doing some things right. So, and thank you and Susan for.
Susan, really.
Yeah. Well, I thought I'd thank you because you're here.
You get all the credit.
Yeah, you get the credit.
Even the food and the snacks weren't half bad.
Yeah, the food was great. So thank you guys, and thank the APA for helping with that. Any other?
And thanks for the cash rewards for being there. Sorry, Don, but y'all. Yeah, well,
Didn't have enough to split, sorry.
Yeah. Any other commission member comments? Hearing them, we'll.
Yeah, actually I do. I had a discussion with Casey Otter. He came away.
let's-
Can we do that a different time?
Well, let's do that under staff reports. This is for,
We
this
said any
is,
of our commission comments.
no, this is under that item.
I got lost.
Jeez, okay. G, staff reports. Hope.
Okay, I'll mention that you all reviewed the electric vehicle chargers for Casey Otto. The chair and Don Smith and I met with Mr. Otto after that meeting to discuss more specifically what the commission was looking for and what the chair would be authorized to sign off on in terms of having a design associated with the, I'm going to call it the item that's going to obscure the electric vehicle charger. Mr. Otto did remove the screening and the chargers so that he could funnel his building. And he did submit a revised drawing that lacked the level of detail and design that the chair and Commissioner Smith had specifically requested. And so we have circled back to him to ask him to focus on the design, and so that's still a pending item.
Now, commission member reports, comments. Rob?
No? Yeah, I'm going to help Casey do a little sketch for you guys. And I just want, because I wasn't privy to the conversation when you guys had it with him, and he came off there with kind of a sour note and complained quite vividly to me. But I've seen both sides of the fence. The only issue I had that we probably ought to have a discussion about is there are no particular guidelines for this. His complaint was, well, do I come up with 12 ideas and approach you 12 different times, and each time you say, well, no, we don't really like that either. That's what he had the most irritation about, was that there was some, where's the line by which you have to have something more, like windows. We tell them no vinyl, yes wood. That's pretty straightforward. Here, it's so vague that no one really knows where to start with. They don't know if they should put a bag over it. Should they put a cheese grater type thing over it? Should they cover it with 4 sides, 2 sides, a lean-to, a flip-up? There's too many options that they get confused, and I agreed with that. Now, Casey, I think we can solve his problem. I'm going to suggest probably a lighter gauge metal, something hinged so that it can flip down like a cover. Something you can flip up and use the machine, the thing, and that'll probably suffice. But the future I can see is coming up again. That we don't want to have a guy come back 4 times because he can't get it right. So.
I just want to respond to that just a little bit, Rob. The reason this started to happen is for some of the issues that you've already brought up, that we've never had this before, but we're going to have them more and more in the future. And I'll go back to vinyl windows. We let things slide over the years, and then we kind of built upon our own problem. This is an opportunity to fix the problem from day one as we start to move forward to try to set some type of a guideline. So we sat in here as a group and provided some ideas. A solution to me is not a peach basket hung on the side of a building. Right. 2 is not a sketch that my dog could have drawn. No. And we suggested.
Don't get me wrong, Don. I'm not arguing about the methods.
No. I know. I'm just trying to explain how we have to respond to some of these complaints, and when they're not happy with what we've told them. I think we were very clear in our meeting with him. Go get a little professional help. Now he's done that, to come up with an idea that will work. So he's kind of done what we want. I don't think we were heavy-handed in our approach at all. We just have an issue that we don't want to dictate the design. But at the same time, we're looking at something over the future that we have to be very careful of, because pretty soon we're going to have one of those buildings that come in, like the doctor across the street, and he's going to have 10 of them, And so it's better to deal with it now and go through the pain and the strife and get it out of the way. And I'm sorry that it has to be Mr. Otto, but it's Mr. Otto.
No, but he did us kind of a valuable service in bringing up. He was the guinea pig that exposed all the flaws of what we don't have in place to handle this kind of scenario. And really, it only came down to me, my opinion came down to, there's a problem with how many, because for you and me, it's a simple matter. And we can come up with 8 great ideas in 5 minutes to solve this. He, being a layperson, he struggles with it and gets frustrated with it, as would any average person coming in front of our board. It's daunting when well, if I sketch this up and bring it in next month, if they turn me down, I got to wait a whole nother month or 2 more weeks to bring it in again. We ought to have a discussion about giving some basic guidelines of maybe 4 different things that do work that they can have as a basis.
But Rob, we did that. We told him he doesn't have to come back here. It can be an administrative review. But we have to have something that's a little bit more tangible than what was done and what was suggested. And each time we were careful. If you sat with a design professional for 5 minutes, this will go away. Right. You do these buildings. You know exactly what we're kind of looking for. So I'm very pleased that he's moving forward. And I hope the result out of this is not only assistance to Mr. Otto, but everybody else that comes in here about an electric charging unit they want to hang on a historic building. So that then we have a design guideline, and every time we have it, we're going to be able to say, and here's the guy that fixed it.
think one of the traps he got caught in is he was converting a garage into a living area, and there's not enough driveway in there to have a sidewalk and a driveway in there, and so that got missed too. But that's not something that, is that something we should take into account to be aware of? Because if it had the sidewalk of 4 feet and set back 20 feet, the ability to hide those chargers would be so much greater. You know, and at the same token, had he come to us before and put the chargers on the side where you could have screened them, but I think just missing that driveway thing just made it a little bit more difficult. So, and that got thrown at us as well.
I think that's him being a layperson too, and I'm going to agree with Rob on that. That's why we have professional people to go to on these types of things. Because what seems simple, very oftentimes becomes very, very complex.
He also mentioned one other thing about any wording we might have in our guidelines about it, that we don't. And we need to add something, at least something where it says it's required. You know, the complaint he brought up was how did he know that was going to be required? Because you don't have to screen the electrical meter or the electrical panel. You don't have to screen the garden hose holder on the wall with the reel that's bigger than the charging unit. So that's the kind of arbitrariness that I think we need to have a little more clarification on of some kind.
Mr. Chair, I think we're getting pretty deep into this, and it's not agendized, so I can agendize something. I think the point's a good one. I worked in a community that stressed retaining rural character, and when we saw the large cabinets showing up at the roadside, that was the absolute worst thing you could see. Had nothing to do with the building, had nothing to do with your site plan and your setbacks, but that was the blemish. So a lot of times it's not the building, it's not the fencing, it's this extraneous stuff that suddenly everything else is perfect and there's this blemish there that kind of took everything away and nobody thought about. So I think it's a worthy item to agendize, and I can certainly see how other communities are addressing it.
Yeah, let's go ahead and do that, and I think we need to be a little bit broader than just charging stations. I mean, if we had this design come to us and there was a big air conditioner that needed screening and it wasn't called out, we would have said, we need that screened, and would have addressed it there. I mean, this was not on the plans originally. Regardless, I think that's a good item to bring up, and maybe we should look at
Yeah, maybe look at the wording on our.
accessory structures or accessory components or something like that, and just add that to our guidelines.
Screening
Something
for,
that just says that screening may be required. I mean, we have that in homeowners associations all the time for trash things and things like that.
HVAC systems and.
The gas meters, you know.
And that'd be a great place to look for that. Just, we could look to CCNRs.
Now, on that list, I mean, I don't know where it quite fits in, but like the solar we've allowed, and they're rising above the apex of the roof being the mistake. We need to, that's an extraneous thing that needs to be written down too. Do we have a new member? I don't know the name
I
of.
was getting there.
We've been giving out historic preservation awards and looking at the Benson House going, oh yeah, they've owned it for 45, 50 years. And the place has always been kept up well and everything. Maybe that's something we should put on the list for next year for the historic preservation award.
Yeah.
I think you could do a nomination right now, and we can hold it. Any other commission member reports or comments? I'd like to introduce our newest member, Michelle Schmitter, who is an architectural historian by trade, so we actually have one that's not a SHPO appointee that can bring a lot of insight. She did recently finish the Capitol fence, and the research that was done on that's just incredible. And it's good to have you, Michelle, and welcome. Well, in about
Thank you.
3 or 4 meetings, you'll figure out how to make a motion
Or how to use this.
before everybody, before everybody jumps in.
I can't get it yet. Some people still read the old minutes for agenda.
I was wondering if the staff could report on how the scavenger hunt went.
You know, as I walked into this meeting, I thought, oh shoot, I should have got a status on how many participants we had. But I think it went really well. The people who came in to submit their responses were just thrilled and excited and loved doing it. So that's just my observation. I don't know how many of you saw the scavenger hunt information this year, but a couple things we did different is Luann came up with the idea of a focus topic, and the focus was windows, the eyes of a building. So it was kind of fun having a theme to it like that. The other thing is we did it as a booklet instead of just the 8.5 by 11 paper. So I don't know if you saw the booklet, but I thought Kristen in our office did a fabulous job with the cover of the booklet. And we also had it online so you could do it on a tablet instead of having to have the paper and then email it in, instead of having to turn it in person. So we tried to sort of bring it to the 21st century. But I don't have the hard numbers. I'll send an email to everybody and let you know how many participants we had. But the feedback was really positive.
And the community outreach and PR on that was really good this year, too. So thank you, Hope. Yeah. So before we get to future agenda items, I have one more question, Hope. Vinyl fences.
I have to tell you, I had to have a special meeting this month for Planning Commission. We've just gotten, these other commissions are beating me up. So I know I owe it to you. It's all my fault that's not done, and Dan and I will work on it.
Okay. Have you had a chance to review it, then?
Not the latest version.
Okay. So if are there any more commission members?
Of course, you know I've undertaken a large project at my house, and I'm outside a lot. People doing the scavenger hunt, people are like, we've done this since it started. We've been doing this 8 or 9 years. This is really awesome. Can you tell me where all this stuff is? And I looked at some of them, I said, I'm sorry, what you're trying to find, I don't know. And so you guys did a really good job, but, you know, there were some people that they just drive around the blocks just constantly. And even one couple said, oh, you're the guy that was on the lift last year and you didn't want to get down and show us the spark arrestor in your backyard. You really are a nice guy. And I actually went to school with their son, but the feedback that I got, and it seemed like there was, from what I saw, there was a lot more out this year. I mean, there was just some all over the place, but I think that's something really cool.
Well, as the chair mentioned, we definitely put it on social media. Our public information officer did an excellent job just getting it out there, and it got picked up at a lot of different outlets, so it was really helpful.
Great. So future agenda items. You got the fences. We've got a discussion on ancillary structures.
And master plan.
What about signage in the district? Buffers, all that stuff.
Yeah, I guess we can talk about it. We could put that on. Jed was referring to street sign toppers or something that calls out the district. Yeah, so that's.
Yeah, something we can afford.
Yeah, and probably the status of the CLG grant, hasn't that been played with too? So we've got those. Are we planning on a July meeting?
You just gave me all this stuff, I think so.
Okay.
Way to go.
Okay, yeah. Okay, any other agenda items? Move to H, public comments. Members of the public who wish to address the commission may approach the podium at this time to speak on matters relevant to or within the authority of the Historic Resources Commission, including any matter that is not specifically included on the agenda as an action item. No action may be taken on a matter raised under this public comment portion of the agenda. Is there any public comment? Seeing no public and hearing none, we'll move to possible adjournment. Entertain a motion.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
We're adjourned. Thank you.